Good morning, and thank you for introducing me, Laura. My company is tCubed. So we have a classic game with a twist for groups on the go. So right now, in a busy world, like everybody knows, you're just trying to fit in time with other people, and you want to be with other people, but it's difficult to do. And so we often find ourselves going to lunch and trying to squeeze in like 30 minutes. You get to lunch or you get to dinner with these small groups, and you have a 5 to 15 minute wait. The default that most people have is to jump back on their cell phones, and it's not because they want to, it's just because that is what we have habitually done at this point. And so what would be nice is if you actually have something that the entire group can play in those 15-20 minutes, sorry, 5 to 15 minutes, that the second they see it, even if it's new, they're familiar enough with the base that they think they can do it. And so they'll want to participate. And then once you actually get them to want to participate, that it's actually equally as engaging as the alternative of being your cell phone. So we've made a solution that is, sorry, a little head on that one. So traditionally what we would do to actually fill that gap is we play things on pen and paper. We play hangman or we play tic-tac-toe with our kids. What we've done is we've actually taken tic-tac-toe, we put it on a cube, and you have arrows and portals that move you around the board while you're trying to connect 3 in a row on 3 sides before your opponent does. And it takes less than 15 minutes to play. So why now? Well, first off, it's taken this long for us to actually recognize that technology is great, but we want a break. Not every single day, but we want a break, especially when we're with other people, because we want to connect with them. And right now, we are actually deciding to take those breaks playing games, and especially tabletop games. Tabletop games and conventions in the industry actually, even though video games are booming, tabletop is still booming, and it's actually at a faster rate. So people are going to conventions. This is the 50th year reunion of the largest tabletop game convention. It took 48 years to get to 30,000. From 14 to 15, they grew by 19,000, and they grew another 10,000, 12,000 this year. So people are really wanting to spend their times with others doing something like this, playing games. So tCubed can actually be played from 8 years old up to usually like 50, 60 people start dropping out. But most of our players are actually millennials. They're usually about 25 to 35. They usually do have a disposable income, and they are actively trying to find things to do that are not on their phone when they're done with work. The actual market size for just cards and games is 105 million. And between 2014 and 2015, that increased by 75%. Tabletop or board games actually is $250 million, and that increased 30% in that same time frame. We are somewhere between a board game and a cards and games. And so we don't know what our total available market is, but it's somewhere between 105 and 250. Now, this same audience is actually funding Kickstarter, and Kickstarter is a good example of what their behaviors are. The top category that is funded by millennials is tabletop games, by far, compared to video games. It's more than 3 times the number of actual supporters. It brings in more revenue on Kickstarter than video games do. And 10 games have actually received over $3 million, and the top game on Kickstarter was at $12.3 million, and it's a card game with little figure games. So the other alternatives to tCubed would be games like Sushi Go, and it's actually one of those games that raised over $3 million, and Battleship, and even just the Rubik's Cube. But one of the main drawbacks with all of these games is that they have pieces that you can lose on the go. If it's a card game, you don't want to get out a deck of cards in a car or at somewhere else. If it's a verbal game like where you're shouting out answers, I forgot one right now, you don't want to do that in the Red Robin lobby. But with tCubed, you actually can do all of that and actually pass it back and forth and enjoy it, put it away, and then go to dinner. So our product actually started as a $1 whiteboard cube. And we put this together, we just kept iteration after iteration going and kept talking to the customers, and we've talked to over 600 people and 4,000 plus games played on this to actually lead us to get to this. And this is actually something I personally produced down at Hacker Lab. And we sold 200 of these in our first 8 weeks over Christmas. And the whole thing has been customer-based and customer validation-based. But what we would like to do is convert from me making these at Hacker Lab to somebody else doing these because it's actually fairly time intensive and it's pretty expensive to make these right now. How we sell these is we just sell them on the website, and how we did it over Christmas is we just actually went online and said, on Facebook and said, hey, we have this cool thing, you guys should try it out, and a lot of our friends and families bought it, and actually it was, they were very receptive to it. We're also going to do Amazon FBA once we get a couple other quirks fixed, and then we sell it in cards and games retailers, including one in Davis right now. $14.99 is how much we sell for, and it's actually been like a magical price point. Everybody we talk to, different game retailers, different toy retailers, when we have them guess what the price should be, they consistently say $14.99. We came across that number by interviewing a lot of people, so we know that this is actually the number we're going to keep selling it at. During Christmas, 2 people out of 100 bought 1. Pretty much everybody got 2, and 20% bought 5. So our average per customer is 2.3 sales, and that's roughly going to end up being like $105 per customer, at least as it stands now, but we want to get that up because you have other birthdays, you have more Christmases, you have more things where people want to get this out, and it goes really well in a stocking. So it's just the right size for a small gift.
Clever.
Wow.
That's clever.
So why are we the right people to build this? 1, we built it. 2, we know where our weaknesses are. And where our weaknesses lie are basically, we don't have like a pro game developer or a pro like game audience necessarily. You'll hear from Gabe in a minute, and he's part of IGDA, and like that's one of our big audiences. We go to all their expos, but we don't inherently have that information. And we don't have any marketing and sales background. But we know that we don't, and we constantly talk to people to try to improve that. So here's the traction. This map's actually not updated. We are in over a third of the United States geographically, and Ontario, Canada. And so what we did over Christmas financially as a result of the number of people we sold to, we're about $3,000 that we actually earned revenue right now. We want to sell the rest of our units, which is about 2,200 of them, by June, which would give us $32K net. And if we do 2 of these runs this year, then we'll get up to $71K total net revenue this year without any investment or loans. And that's tCubed. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them.
Thank you, Chris. So, Chris, what can the community do to help you?
If you know anybody that's actually done a Kickstarter campaign and successfully done it, preferably in gaming, but anything. It's one of the things we want to do next is Kickstarter, just because that is where our audience actually sits, and I didn't know that until we did the market research. So that would be great. And if not, if you're in the gaming, I need to stop saying gaming. If you're in tabletop industry, then it'd be good to connect with you and just talk to you more about how to get this out to a wider audience faster than we're going to do it, because we're just going like person by person.
Okay. So it's open for questions, and you can go ahead and call on whomever.
Okay.
I can tell you what not to do in a Kickstarter.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I'd be happy to have that conversation, at any time. But could you show us how the game actually works?
Yeah.
It wasn't clear to me how to play.
Sorry, I should have done it before I gave it out. If you want to see, I have a bunch of these on me. So it is tic-tac-toe on 6 different faces. If you mark a side, you also get the side that touches it as well.
Yes.
Okay. Now you go to where you first played, you'll find these arrows. That arrow forces your opponent to start on that side. So that's where your opponent would start. Now if you get a corner, you get, again, all touching corners. Go to where you first marked, you'll find the arrow to force your opponent to start on that side. And then the last one would be centers. And so if you mark a center, there's nothing touching it, so you get the opposite center, and that is where your opponent would start.
I love it.
Oh, wow.
I can't wait to play.
Love that. I do. Yes.
So you talk about doing this, waiting for a restaurant for a table or something like that, but Chili's now is putting games on their tables to pass the time while you wait for your order. I would think about selling directly to restaurants.
Let me address that in 1 second. I agree with the statement. By the way, this is how it packs down, is they all click together kind of like Lego style.
Yeah.
So we went into Red Robin and we saw what you're talking about, and that was our immediate idea was there's a market in here, and I think that that's the market we're filling specifically is that time frame.
Yeah.
So,
If you can get that price point down in production, so I managed restaurants for quite some time.
Okay.
And people would steal our pepper grinders, our salt dishes.
You'd have to
And
change the
so
table.
we were constantly reordering all these things, but people loved them, so we kind of let them steal them because it brought them back to the restaurant.
that's kind of
So it's kind of a catch-22 for the restaurant, but if you hook them in, the reorders of this, especially if you can drive that price point down and engage the kids and the family, it's like a unique differentiator for restaurants.
You can also logo those
Yeah.
restaurants,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
right? Offer them custom printing to make it theirs. And then everywhere those show up at, they've got their logos out there.
So, and then the last thing, Amazon, I would caution you, unless you have an IP portfolio set, that's really protected, try to achieve that first. Because if
try to
you
achieve Amazon first.
try to achieve, shore up your patents on this, protect it as much as possible before you go out there.
Right.
Because if it's really popular, they'll steal it right from underneath you.
So I really like this suggestion. And anybody else that's making games real fast, my experience with this is we went to go out to Amazon and you can immediately actually cost yourself way more money because if people have a lot of returns, they'll just close your account. And there's very little you can do about them closing it. And then they say, do you want to pay 2/3 of the total cost to have these destroyed, 100% of the cost to have them sent back to you? And because these are still made in-house, they have enough little quirks that like full-fledged retailers like Amazon would have returns. And so, yeah, I agree.
So I would focus, I'm in that world right now,
Okay.
and I kind of inherited Amazon, and they focus more on that rather than, you don't build a brand on Amazon, and that's what you want to do. You want to, so I would focus more on your online marketing to your website, especially to protect margin, right? And then you use Amazon as a supplemental channel to get it out there. But Amazon is not as turnkey as everybody thinks, and nor is it an inexpensive sales solution.
I would love to actually grab coffee with you and talk
Sure,
more about
yeah, no
that. 'cause
problem.
That's one of the things we're trying to
It's
decide right
it's
now.
like I spent years marketing on Google and Facebook, and there's enough overlap to trick you into thinking you know what you're doing. There's enough difference to kick you in the teeth really quickly and show you that you don't know how to market properly on Amazon just yet. So, just I'll be happy to share my successes and failures.
I'm very interested in that. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, kind of going back to the putting logo on it or putting information on it. Have you considered maybe hotels? That these could be kind of sitting in a room when you check in. People walk into a room, they just hang out.
I haven't thought about that. That's not been recommended. It's a good idea.
If people are traveling, they're looking for things to do.
As a fill-in. Like
Hey,
they're
I love
for
this.
other
Airlines,
Yeah.
super cool.
That's
First
a-
class gift,
Hey, that's a great idea. I love that.
I'd be house would be.
So yeah, those are good suggestions. I would say my only concern right now with logos, we kind of went through this with another company already. Because of the way these are manufactured, and even if you do these injection mold, the logo is actually imprinted inside of it, so you'd have to find some way to not mess with your manufacturing process and somehow have like something that like exchanges in and out. But it is a good idea, and we'd like to see how it could be done.
I mean, if you went to, you walk into some of the hotels here, and just show it to them and just ask them if they would buy them. You can put their logo in it. If you can get an order ahead of time.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea, actually.
I need to go back for a couple of questions. All the games already exist, correct?
Sorry, all the games.
All the games that people can go to already exist in their world. They know of these games, right? Okay. Do you have any games of your own that you can go take them to first and then out to somebody else's?
You mean that I can actually just walk these into and do, or?
Yeah.
So what
That would be the free one.
Yeah.
That then, you know how the games do that. You can play for free and then you have to accumulate chips and go from there.
Right. So what we do, actually, IGDA, so Gabe's in charge of IGDA, like they have an expo, and that's what launched this. Like we basically took a bunch of these to this expo, and we're like, we have this tic-tac-toe game, will you play it and tell us what you think? And like we've grown it by continually just going to these expos and talking with people like Gabe, and just saying like, how do you modify this? And like, that's actually how we've been able to build our audience as well. is like just going out and asking people, and we're at the stage where we're selling it, and it is a transition from what we're talking about to selling it, and especially selling it online and finding those people online and getting them in. And so we did a whole bunch of that, like all of 2016.
One more question.
Okay.
Yeah, at the schools, there is a real problem with teachers and cell phones. They get the kids coming in and they want to be on their doggone cell phone. The teacher wants to teach. Are there any possible games that the teacher could use and plug into their curriculum or plug into what they're doing?
For tCubed? So this is the first game, and this is why I'm saying we're somewhere between cards and board game.
Oh,
This is
okay.
kind of a game board if you think about it, and the first thing, 1 in 5 people like, you should make this into a drinking game. I am sure you can make this into a drinking game. We haven't yet, and so rather than making another product, we actually want to, sometime in this next year, just start having people develop games for this, and just helping publish the games for this. Because all it is a board with a marker, and there's a lot you can do with that.
Yeah, question. So, or a couple questions. I might have missed it, but how much does it cost to make?
$5 and a bunch of my time. Well, $3 and a bunch of my time.
And you said it's made out of whiteboard and.
So it's acrylic, and it's painted on the backside.
Can you use both sides of the cube? So if I wanted to change the paint to the other side and use an orange, or change the entire color of the cube and do another game on the other side,
Right.
is it irreversible? Can
You,
turn it inside out?
you technically can. So on the inside, it is actually white. So you could make it a whiteboard. This is the one I was talking about when I said whiteboard. It's just where we started. You can, but because of the color-coded dots for assembly, it would make it difficult. And the popularity of those would lead me to say I don't care about putting anything on the reversible side, just because most people are like, oh, I like being able to just click this together. It's very intuitive. But I have thought about what you're talking about, and if we end up not doing it with the same type of manufacturing process with these feeder joints is what they're called, you could make them reversible so any side can go anywhere, and then you could do some cool games with that, but we just haven't gotten to exploring that yet. Anybody else?
I had one more.
Okay.
Did I hear you say something about the fact that you could have multiple players at a table in a restaurant and they can pass the cube amongst themselves and play that way?
Right, so you can,
Thank you.
you
Okay.
can do
That-
just,
that was-
yeah, real fast. You can do 1 to 4 players usually works out. That by 4 they get bored. If you do 4, it's 2 versus 2, and you're kind of doing cooperative gameplay to win 3, and we've done that, and that's fun. 3 players is still pretty fun, but like above that's not. 1 player, there are some challenges in the rules, and you can look for the 1 player challenges, and they're actually, no one's done them yet. No one's actually been able to get to them yet. They're actually fairly hard.
I think one of the things that would definitely help sell the product to even maybe schools or daycare centers for kids is proving and doing some research to show that it helps this type of play, in essence, can increase cognitive ability in children and some type of positive output rather than just playing on your phone, which can sometimes consume you from your outside world. But this is getting those children back into working with their hands, working with their critical thinking skills, and sharing research to support that.
So we do want to eventually get into like parents and kids and daycares and stuff like that. Initially, that's not where we're going, just because if you put it as a toy for a kid, like you're stuck there. So we actually want to go from the top down.
25 to 30.
Yeah, and so once we get that, I would like to explore this.
25, 35-year-olds don't care about critical thinking.
I know, right?
We got it.
Right, but you don't have to worry about them like licking the acrylic paint off.
Yeah.
You can just sell it to them. So.
Don't you want to know?
I saw another hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to base my question off what was going on over here. I have a background in game-based learning, game-based education. I can tell you that there's 2 schools, one in New York and one in LA. They're strictly game-based learning. They can take any game and turn it into curriculum, so they might be worth contacting.
Yeah, I think that's
Give
super
their
cool.
information.
That's cool.
Do you know the name by chance of one of them?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, I'll look it up.
No.
Okay, last question.
That's it.
I have, there's a Kickstarter campaign for something called Fidget Cube.
Okay.
That like went totally, I don't know if it went viral,
Uh-huh.
but they like made like, I don't know, 1 million times amount they wanted.
Mhm.
And they also had issues with people imitating their product and selling it on Amazon. But anyway, it would be an interesting campaign for you to look at,
Mhm.
this Fidget Cube. It's not a game, it's like this little cube that you like fidget with.
Hmm.
So I bought one, but I don't have it yet. But anyway, That's it, that's all.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, everybody.